All right, so in these notes, we're going to use all of these properties, not all of them, we're only going to use probably not even half of them. We're going to use the properties from our notes to prove why I can solve problems the way we solved it. Biggest thing you're going to have to realize here is it doesn't tell you the math, it just tells you you go from one step to the next, and then you have to tell me how you got from that step to that. The easiest way to do this is go ahead and do the math over here. Another thing you have to be aware of is the math I'm doing in this box actually is going to go diagonal to that box. This is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing in this box. Okay, so basically it tells me associative property of addition. Remember, it doesn't matter where the parentheses are. I can just add them all together. So 3x plus x is 4x. My minus 8 stays there, 12. I can do that because of the associative property of addition. Okay, so now here's where we can really kind of show our work over here. In class, what we're going to do is probably going to solve these over here and then write why we did it right here. All right, so 4x minus 8 equals 12. Well, we all know I have to add 8, right? So that reason is going to go there. And you don't have to write the whole thing. All you have to do is write the addition, ADD, we're going to call that addition, property of equality. So that's all we have to write. So this means addition, property of equality. All right, so next, keep solving this over here, I would divide by 4. So the reason I can do that is going to go in this box right here. And what did we do? Well, that is the division property of equality. And that's it. So all we're doing is we're still solving the problem. Actually, these are all solved for you. And over here, you're saying why, what property gives us the right or allows us to do this over here. Okay, so again, it can be confusion when you just look at these numbers, but if you'll go ahead and do the math, it helps out. 6x plus 14, I would subtract 14 from both sides. Already does the math for you. I'm gonna go ahead and completely solve this one. 6x equals negative 1/2, I would divide by 6. All right, so now let's fill in this side. Remember this math, the reason's gonna go there. What did I do? I did the subtraction property of equality. What gives me the right to do this, or what justifies it? The division property of equality, because I divided. Don't care what I divided by over here, I just tell them that I divided. All right? So this one's a little more tricky, but let's figure out what happened. Where'd these parentheses go? Well, look what happened in my signs. A positive x became a negative x. A positive 4 became a negative 4. Remember, there's really a negative 1 out there. So what did I do? I distributed. And for that one, all you have to do is write distributive property, or DIST period property. Oh, you know what? You could do POE, sorry. All right, so next, how did I get from this step to this step? Well, all I did was 3x minus x gave me 2x. But basically, I combined like terms, but that one's filled in for you. All right? So the next thing I would do, well, my steps when I was solving these equations back in Unit 1, I believe, told me to add the constant or move the constant. Well, I would do that by adding 4. That gives me negative 2 equals 2x. I would divide by 2. That gives me negative 1 equals x, but I don't like the way that's written, so I flip it, okay? So now let's fill in this side here. So look, this one is done. We've already done that one, distributive property of equality. This one is done for us, it's combined like terms. What did I do in this box? That's what goes here. That's the addition property of equality. I added, so that's what that is. What did I do in this box? That's what goes there. That would be the division property of equality. I divided both sides by 2. And then how did I turn this one around? How did I flip it? How did I make -1 equals x? What's the rule says I can do that? That would be the symmetric property of equality. If you'll notice, 90% of these things are going to say the property of equality because I'm dealing with equations. Okay, so now let's solve this one, and then over here we're going to say why we did or how could we do what we did. I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. Well, I like my x's to be on the left-hand side. So to move this x over here, I would subtract x. And that's going to give me 4 minus 4x equals 16. I'm just going to keep solving over here. Next, I need to move the constant. So I would subtract 4. That's going to give me -4x equals 12. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the math because the most important thing over here is this is the most important side. You know how to do this. To get the x by itself, I would divide by -4, and that would give me x equals -3. So now, what did I do? This was the subtraction property of equality. Well, I did it again. I did the same thing. I subtracted x here, I subtracted 4 here, so I did the same property. That's okay. And then the next thing I did was I divided. So after you do a few of these, you're going to see they're not hard at all. Like I said, you already know how to do them. Trying to figure out what it's called might be a little more difficult, but remember, you can always use your notes, okay? So this one is kind of halfway done for us, okay? But again, just go through the steps of how you would solve this. So this first step's done for us. Now I've got 12 equals 5x minus 18. Well, our rules tell us to move the constant. So let's move the constant. It's a minus 18 there. So it's going to be a plus 18 to both sides. So that's going to give me 30 equals 5x. Well, what would I do next? I would divide by 5. So now I've got 6 equals x. Remember, I could write that x equals 6, but it doesn't flip it. But remember, we did one on the first page that flipped it, but this one we don't have to flip it, so don't worry about doing that, but you could. All right, so now, what did I do from here to go to there? Well, if you'll notice, this 3x isn't on this side anymore, so that means they had to put the 3x over here, so they would have done that by subtracting 3x from both sides, so that would be the subtraction property of equality. Next, I added 18. Well, look, it's already done for us, addition property of equality. And then the next thing I did, divided both sides by 5, division property of equality. All right, so the next one's pretty easy. 3k plus 5 equals 17. Forget about that next line. How would I solve this? I would subtract 5 from both sides. Now I have 3k equals 12. I would divide both sides by 3, and that's going to give me k equals 4. Well, look at this side. It's almost done for us, remember? Realize this, the very first box is 9 times out of 10 is going to be given. All right, that 3k plus 5 equals 17 was given to us. Now, how did I go from that step to the next step? Well, I subtracted by 5. So that is the subtraction property of equality. How did I go from this step to this step? Well, I divided by 3. Well, good, it's already done for us. Beautiful. All right, 6a or negative 6a minus 5 equals 95. Move the constant. And I would do that by adding 5 because it's subtracted. That gives me negative 6a equals negative 90. I would divide by negative 6, the coefficient, and that's going to give me a equals, I think that's 15, positive 15. Now, how did I do it? What did I do from this step to go to that step? I used the addition property of equality. How did I go from this step to this step? I used the division property of equality. You'll start to notice, look at this, subtraction, division, subtraction, addition, division, addition, subtraction, division, multiplication of property of equalities. Most of the time, that's what we're using over here. Most of the time, not all the time. So a little test taking strategy. If you do one of these and you get stuck and you have no idea what you're supposed to write here, I'd pick one of those four: addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, property of equality. You got like a 25% chance, or maybe a little less, but odds are that's what it's going to be. It's going to be one of those four. All right. Well, now I see parentheses with a number out front. So that would mean I would distribute, and that's going to give me 15x plus 33 equals 13x plus 5. I'm going to just keep solving. I like my x's on the left-hand side, so I'm going to move that there. That's going to give me 2x plus 33 equals 5. Flying through the math part of it because you can punch these things into your calculator. So now I've got a two-step equation. Move the constant. Divide by the coefficient. So we're done. X equals negative 14. First step was given to us. How did I go from there to there? I use, what is that called? That's the distributive property. All right, so there's one that's not addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. That's the one we use the next, or the most the next, okay? This one's probably the fifth most used one. All right, well, how did I go from this step to this step? I use the subtraction property of equality. I subtracted 13x from both sides. Look, I did it again. I subtracted. It's okay that we have the same thing twice. That is fine. And then from here to here, I divided by 2. So that is the division property of equality. One thing I want you to be aware of, real quick. So if I'm moving an x from one side to the other, I'm using either subtraction or addition property of equation. If I am, give me a second. If my x's are on the same side already, and all I'm doing is putting them together, that's combining like terms. Moving an x from one side to the other, or subtracting both sides from x, is the subtraction property of equality. Combining like terms, my x's were on the same side. Okay, so that's why this one's combining like terms and not the addition property. And then this one is subtraction because I'm moving the x from one side to the other.